I'm Gary Bembridge and I'm going to take a look at whether now is the right time to book a 2021 cruise. Loads of people are asking me this very question. Lots of people want to book something so they have something to look forward to. They're worried that prices are going up, the itineraries are selling out, and they want to know, is the right time to book now? I'm going to take a look at 5 things you need to think about before you click that book button or you make that commitment. And also, if you do decide to go ahead with the booking, 4 things you absolutely must make sure you do if you are booking. First of all, everyone's assuming that I'm talking to that 2021 is going to be returning to normal. They're assuming that everything's going to reset and it's going to be normal again. This is not likely. Bear in mind, these itineraries were developed a long time ago, years and years ago, before the pandemic came and the world got thrown into disruption. So when you're looking to book in 2021, do not assume that things are going to reset back to normal. It's possible, but unlikely. Importantly, no one knows when mainstream cruising is going to resume. We've seen a couple of local cruises for local people starting in places like France. If you're German, you can go cruising around Germany. If you're Norwegian, you can go cruising around Norway. I'm talking about mainstream cruising, so cruising that goes around the Mediterranean, the Caribbean, Alaska, whatever. Nobody knows when these are going to start, and no one knows whether they're going to start this year or even into next year. The authorities like the CDC in the US, even the Public Health England in the UK, the authorities in Spain, they have not agreed when cruising can resume, and we have no idea whether it's going to happen this year or into 2021. So certainly if you're looking to book, do not assume that cruising will have started. So particularly if you're looking at the beginning of 2021, it's probably not the greatest time to book a cruise. Wait until it's absolutely certain that cruises are starting and cruising started where you want it before you book, because we just don't know if they're going to happen in that time frame. Also, travel advisories are stopping a lot of people moving around to join cruising. So in the UK, you have a advice which says don't go cruising. The same in the US. Australia is not talking about letting people travel and leave the country to join cruising until sometime into 2021. Also, if you're from the EU, you can't even fly into the US at the moment because of restrictions in the US, and US can't move into many countries of the world to join cruises. So if you're thinking of booking a cruise, only book a cruise when you genuinely believe that travel restrictions around you moving to join a cruise have lifted and cruising has restarted. If you are an EU resident, for example, you could though book a river cruise in Europe, because these cruises are up and running and EU citizens are allowed to move around and join those cruises currently without having to do any self-isolation returning to their countries. So there are some opportunities to cruise. If you do want to go cruising in French Polynesia, those cruises are up and running. You could go on one of those cruises. If you want to go cruising around Iceland, those are up and running as well. So there are some cruises that are up and running, accepting international travelers subject to COVID-19 testing. So that could be something that you want to book because they are definitely running. Even if cruises have restarted, the second key thing to think about is the itinerary that you are looking at booking may not run. So even if cruises have started, you might find there's country restrictions or port restrictions around accepting cruise ships. They may not all be open. So if you book an itinerary because there's certain islands you want to visit in the Caribbean, or certain places in Europe you want to go, or certain destinations in Alaska you want to go to, wherever you're thinking of cruising, don't book a cruise for 2021 if there are absolute places that you want to visit on that itinerary, because we do not know yet if those are starting up. If you're broadly happy to go to the Caribbean or the Mediterranean and not that fussed about which specific ports you call out, you may want to then say, well, actually I'll book because I don't mind if the itinerary changes. The cruise line under their contract can change a cruise once you have booked it and don't necessarily have to give you the chance of pulling out. So you might find you book a cruise to Caribbean and they change all the ports, or they have more sea days. The cruise line can do that quite happily within their rights. So when you're booking an itinerary for 2021, bear in mind that itinerary, there's no guarantees that that will run. So if you're really locked in and set on a certain itinerary, I would hold back from booking it until we know absolutely that that is up and running. The third thing to consider if you're looking to book a cruise is if you're booking a cruise because there's a very specific ship you want to go on, perhaps a new ship that's coming out, launching for the very first time, or some ship that's going to be revamped, or actually there's a very specific ship you want to try, one of the new Celebrity Edge class ships or something like that. I would also hold back until we know that those ships are coming into service and actually running. Now, the reason I say that is it's very clear that all the cruise lines have said that when sailing does start, they're going to be phasing in ships slowly and surely. They're not going to all come on stream at one time. So you might find that your ship is not up and running when you want to go cruising in 2021. Arnold Donald, the head of the Carnival Corporation, so that includes obviously Carnival, Holland America, Cunard, P&O, Seabourn, AIDA, all those cruise lines, has said that he doesn't expect the full fleet to be sailing again, possibly as late as 2022. So if there's a very specific ship you want to go on, be very cautious about booking until that ship has re-entered service, or there's confirmation that it's re-entering. Some people found that out the hard way. They'd booked, for example, a world cruise on Holland America Amsterdam. That has been scrapped because Holland America sold 4 of their ships. They sold the Amsterdam, the Maasdam, the Rotterdam, and the Veendam. So all those cruises, the World Cruise, Alaska, Canada, all those cruises have disappeared. So we just don't know what ships will be up and running, and it's possible, or probably even likely in 2021, we're going to see a staggered approach to cruise ships coming back in. So if you want to book a cruise because you really want to go on a very specific ship, then don't book until you know that ship is coming on stream. Not only have new ships been delayed, but also upgrades have been postponed. So we've seen Celebrity pushing back some of their upgrades, Carnival pushing back their upgrades, Royal Caribbean pushing their upgrades up into the future. So if you're also choosing a ship which had brand new bells and whistles and features, again, we don't know when that will be coming on stream. Another good reason for not booking a 2021 cruise absolutely right now on any of those big mainstream lines is you have no idea what the actual protocols are going to be and what the cruise experience is going to be like. So you could be booking a cruise and you find you don't like the way the cruise is running. So for example, what we've seen at the moment is some indications of what could be the case, but they have not been agreed. We've seen, for example, lots of talk about more pre-screening. So some cruise lines have actually introduced doctor's notes where you have a doctor screening beforehand. So for example, on Ponant, they've introduced that. They've also required that you have to have a COVID-19 test before you go on many of their cruises. Now, that may or may not happen on other cruise lines, and you may not want to go with that, for example. We also don't know exactly what the onboard experience is going to be. We've seen lots of indications, for example, that there will be fewer passengers on board to enable more social distancing. We've seen the fact that you may have limits on the amount of people that can be around the swimming pool, the theatre, the bars, the casino at any point in time. So you may not want to go through that experience if you can't go to the pool whenever you want, or in the jacuzzi, the hot tub. You may not like that experience. There's been lots of changes suggested to dining, no self-service dining, perhaps only being able to sit with people in your travel party, much more staggered timing of dining, more people eating, room service to encourage and free up space in the dining room. So changes to the dining room process could happen, which doesn't appeal to you. Masks may be part of the cruise experience. We've seen on some cruise lines that they started up mirroring what's happening on land with the current mask regulations. So masks may be part of the cruise experience, and you don't want to do that. We just don't know which of these will be in place. We've seen some indications based on cruise lines that have started up. But if you're going on a cruise line, for example, Ponant around France, or Mein Schiff, or Hapag-Lloyd, or AIDA in Germany, or Hurtigruten, if you book those cruises now, if you're a resident in those countries, you know exactly what you're going to have to do and put up with. So I would recommend, if you have any reservations about what the changes could be, wait until you know exactly what the protocols are before you book your 2021 cruise, because you're not going to be able to pull out of the cruise once you're committed to it if you don't like the protocols. Another critical thing to think about is prices. At the moment, there are deals going around, but the prices overall are quite high. They haven't really factored in reduction of prices. So what you're seeing is lots of deals which will bundle new things in. So you'll get gratuities, drinks packages, perhaps some excursions thrown in, Wi-Fi. Those kind of things are being bundled in, but the overall rate of fares hasn't really come down to reflect possibly fewer people wanting to go cruising. So I would say if you're looking for a great deal, now is probably not the time to book. Once the cruise lines know that they have the go to start sailing, they know what ships are coming on stream, they know what itineraries they're running, they know what the real demand for those cruises are, then we will see prices start to meet much more the demand. I personally believe that we will see much sharper pricing, fair pricing, as we head into next year, and people then have to physically make the decision of boarding ships or not. Die-hard cruisers, many people who are big fans of cruising are, I think, going to want to cruise, but the new to cruise, perhaps less frequent cruisers, I think are going to hold back. Bear in mind, a lot of those cruises in 2021 are people who've booked a year or more ahead before the pandemic, and I think a lot of those will drop out. We will see much more capacity coming on stream. So if you want to book now because you're worried about not getting a great deal, I wouldn't worry about that. I would wait until the ships are committed to sailing. We know what's actually going to be out there and running, and then we will see the real prices coming on. If you do decide to book, then that is a risk that you are going to take, that prices actually work against you. If despite all of that you decided you still want to book, 4 critical things you should do when you make a booking. These are absolutely essential if you make a booking for 2021 right now. First of all, make sure that you're perfectly fine if you have that cruise cancelled on you or significant changes to the itinerary. If you say you don't mind taking that risk, then proceed with booking. Secondly, make sure that you're taking a booking which has a very low deposit, which many are doing, or certainly you have a refundable deposit, or you're able to move the deposit, so you're not going to lose that money. I've seen lots of cruises, for example, in 2021, where you're paying as little as $50 or $75 to make a booking, so you may say that's a risk you want to take. Thirdly, make sure you take out insurance when you book, and insurance includes 2 things. First of all, it includes cancel for any reason. So if you change your mind and you want to pull out of cruise, you can do that. And also make sure that it does include COVID-19 cover for cruising. Fourth thing to do is track prices. As I mentioned, I think prices are going to be volatile. So once you've made a booking, keep an eye on that. There's a couple of sites you can go to. Cruise Critic, enter your cruise, and you can set up a tracker, or a site that I like to use is called cruisewatch.com. I input my cruises and keep an eye on it. And I've already seen I have some cruises booked for January, February in 2021. I've put my cruises in there, and I have seen 4 alerts already in the last 6 weeks of that price of those cruises coming down. So if you are going to book a cruise, make sure you track prices. That gives you leverage to then go back and negotiate a lower fare or upgrades. Is now the right time to book a 2021 cruise? If you desperately want to book it, there are some key watch outs and things that you need to be absolutely careful of, because you could be booking a cruise that just is never going to happen. So think very carefully about it before you take a booking. I have loads more videos packed full of other tips and advice, so why don't you watch another one of those right now?